Then I have William Wyrick. Where are you? There you are.
Hiding. I'm joined at the podium with Peggy Wiles with the Ventura River Water District. I'm with the city of Ojai. And I just want to make a statement and pass it and make a request of this board. Peggy has a letter which a group of agencies and representative agencies forwarded to this board back in September. And we would like that this issue be put on the future agenda for board discussion. I think this very hearing demonstrates the impact of Stage 4 and possibly Stage 5 on our community. We have the critical issue right now is in terms of investing and enhancing our water security, either by connection to the State Water Project or otherwise. Part of the original vision of having backup to groundwater in the reservoir and then backup to the reservoir. The critical issue, of course, is how to evaluate those benefits and costs. And back in September, a group of people that I'll list here came together really back, I believe, beginning in spring, yes, in terms of vetting various economists and studies and looking at the cost of doing a study of the cost of going into Stage 4 and Stage 5, so we would have a more rational basis of looking at the investment in our water security in order to, I hope it's agreed to in our goal, to avoid having to do this in the future, especially getting worse. And so Peggy Wiles with the Ventura River Water District, representatives of the Miners Oaks Water District, the Ojai Valley Board of Realtors, Thatcher School, City of Ojai, Ventura County Farm Bureau, and the Ojai Valley Inn conveyed this letter requesting that the Casitas Municipal Water District, as the largest water purveyor, I'm reading the letter now, in the Ventura River watershed, is interested in leading the effort to conduct an economic impact study of the worsening drought scenario in the Ojai Valley based on the existing water supply infrastructure. Our organizations believe this study is critical for fully understanding this matter of vital interest. The purpose of the study is to estimate the economic impact of the increasing drought, and we believe this study can help decision-making regarding supplemental water resources, and I would add to that, as I'm running out of time, also aid in our ability of soliciting additional resources, the kind of information that granting agencies and other agencies are looking for. And so we respectfully request that this be put on a future agenda for this board to discuss in terms of whether or not we believe the agency that most represents the broad interest of this community for water security would be the lead agency with supplemental resources support from these other participating agencies. So thank you very much, and please put this on a future agenda for discussion.
Okay, we will study this and then appropriate add it to a future agenda. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Next I have Hawk Koch.
Hi, I'm a relatively new member of Ojai, and I've been listening to what's been going on here, and I'm very happy that Angelo is here now. And from what I understand, there's been a lot of, as the gentleman was saying, we're gonna figure this out, and we're gonna do a study. I think it's time the studies are over. From what I understand, we've got about 4 years. And if there's no more rain, this whole place is gone. And I think it's about time for action instead of studies. I was fortunate enough to be a filmmaker on the movie Chinatown, for those of you who may know, was all about the water. What? It's good. And I know all about the water. And I think it's time to move on and stop with studies. I've heard 3 or 4 things that we can do, and we've got to go on and do them and not have more and more studies. Thank you.
As I understand it, the request for studies was for the economic impact, not for what is happening. But if you go onto our water securities website, you will see what is happening and is underway. Thank you for your comment.
So the economic impact of no water, you don't need a study to tell you what's going to happen.
Yep. All right, we will move on to any other comments, public comments. Seeing none, we'll move to general manager comments.
Okay, this is a very few items here for this. We have a busy agenda tonight. first talk about, did send an email out to the directors talking about some main leaks we've had, especially up on Del Norte. Had actually 3 main leaks over the last 2 months on that street. And we found that the issue has been that when the pipeline was installed about 30 years ago, rocks found their way into the backfill and over time have cracked the pipe. So had 3 main leaks up there. Actually had 2 more this week in the Ojai system, one on Sunset Place and another on Ayers. And so we continue, I think since we took ownership of that system, we've fixed over 200 leaks in that system. Typically, the rest of our system, we have 15 that we handle. So I know our engineering department's working diligently to get some main replacements done, but there's much more work to do. And we're taking care of those leaks as they come. As you mentioned, we did just do a tour with our Assemblyperson Monique Lamone this afternoon. Took them various areas of the district talking about water supply projects, and getting some help with some of the regulations we have here as far as state agencies. And they're very interested in what we're doing, and they certainly have heard from the public here. And so we gave them kind of a rundown of the various things we're facing, including our drought messaging, just how effective our drought messaging has been, and that we've been working on getting our water security messaging out to the public and getting people better understanding what it is we're doing to backstop our water supply. And then last but not least, I got a message from the Department of Water Resources indicating that Metropolitan Water District and Department of Water Resources have signed the contract extension amendment to taking the State Water Project another 50 years into the future, so 2085. Along with that, a validation action was filed because it certainly is going to come under most likely scrutiny and will be challenged legally in court. So that's a momentous step for the future of the State Water Project, certainly. So unless the board has some questions, that's
Yes, Director
Mr. Chair, if I might, Mike, could you fill us in, and thank you for following up with the state representatives, but I know we've been wondering and waiting on a letter from from NIMS. I'm wondering, do we have any meetings or a tour with Julia Brownlee's office or Salud Carvajal's office?
We have had conversations. In fact, Julia Brownlee's office has been the most effective. The one issue we've been chasing is the FS 299 permit we're looking for in order to start the environmental work on our Hobo project. And we've had conversations with her office, including the representative in Washington. And we sent letters off to Secretary Perdue, who is part of who is the Secretary of Agriculture, also to both senators in the state, asking for some help with that FS 299 that the Forest Service has been working on for about 14 months now.
Okay.
So yeah, we've had contact and have not heard back from Mr. Secretary yet, but I'm assuming any day now.
I'm wondering if I served with Congressman Carvajal in capacity on Beacon previously. He does represent a sliver of Ventura, certainly part of the district I represent. So I think the opportunity to have 2 Congress folks that have oars in the water, so to speak, would really help. So I'd be happy to work with you on framing or at least an introductory letter to bring Congressman Carvajal.
Yeah, it's just a phone call. That's how usually we start these things. Try
Right.
to get a phone call and meet with staff and try to get them on their radar.
Great.
So
Happy to help with that.
yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Good. Any other comments? Then we'll move to Board of Director comments.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we move forward, and just for the 2 new board members, you look at items 6 and 7. 6 is board member comments, anything you feel are germane to the business of the district. That could include meetings you attended. Item 7 is required by law. Those are reports from meetings for which you received compensation from the district. For example, if you were serving on one of the watershed coalition committees by appointment through the district and received a day of service, you're required by law to give an oral report at the next meeting. Is that clear?
It is, and I'm just, if I may ask, in regards to ex parte meetings, that's in.
If
In
you're
addition to
receiving a day of service, yeah. You can summarize it. It doesn't have to be detailed, but
Perfect.
it just needs to be, tell the board, I attended such and such a meeting, met with so-and-so, and brief synopsis of the meeting and,
So the public is aware of what happened.
correct.
Perfect. Okay.
Any other comment? Thank you. Thank you. We will, that does bring us to item 6 is director comments. And if the directors have any comments, now would be the time. I do have one. That we need to have all of us check our calendars to determine when we might be available for a full-day meeting regarding interviewing for candidates for general manager. We've met with the search group, narrowed that down, and A to Z will bring both of you up to speed. So we need to set a time. You need to set a time where you can spend some time with them to get familiar with the candidates that have been turned in and that we have established as the most viable. And then we need to determine a full day. I'd really like to do this sooner rather than later, like first part of January if possible, but it will take, in all likelihood, a day. So we need you to check your calendars, all of us, and then is it best to get to Robert Kwan or to send it back to,
Yeah, I would send it to Robert.
okay,
Should we
send
work
it to
through
John?
work through
John's
Rebecca?
office.
Work through Rebecca to do that, or just go straight to John's?
You can let me
Yeah,
know.
you don't
That's fine.
have the
Either way.
information. You don't have.
No, being to set up, we can go directly to John's office.
That would be the best.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, on availability, and then we'll get with the company and talk to them and work out a mutual agreement, agreed time. But it, in all likelihood, will take a day. We want to do all the interviews in one day, one time. So, if any other questions on regarding that, get to me after the meeting, if you will, so we can move forward. We don't want to prolong this any more than we need to. Director Kaiser?
I would just add, Jim, that one other date to consider too is a board planning day too. Obviously, that's going to be secondary to our potential selection of a new general manager, but also we need to have a board planning day, obviously, to bring the new board members up to steam too on all the different issues, projects that we're facing too. And I think that would be pretty much at least a half-day session also. In the past, they've done it on Saturdays, so that's another idea too.
We can establish that at our first board meeting in January when all officers will be elected and committee assignments are made. That does bring up a point. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. If we need to elaborate on committees or explain where the committees, let's have that discussion so that you feel comfortable in making a selection on the 9th. And we'll try to accommodate whatever your desires are. So we'll move with that.
Are we still on board director comments?
Yes, we are.
I did have a couple comments. One of them was a quick question to the interim general manager, and that is in regards to the 1601 permitting, the status of that, in regards to the fish ladder forebay and all.
Yeah, so 1601 is the state permit. Let me update you on the other permits we're working on. So we did get, there are 4 federal permits that are being worked on, and clearance of 2 of those have actually happened today. We're expecting the other 2 federal permits to be ready by the end of the month. The 1601 we have submitted, and we're told it's at least a 60-day process. But again, working with our representative, we're hoping to squeeze that down and get that ready at the same time the federal permits are done the end of the month.
For those of you that might not be familiar with it, this is the vegetation that's grown up in the diversion canal as a result of sediment coming down, washing down after the rains following the Thomas Fire. And a lot of vegetation has sprung up through there, and part of it is blocking part of our ability to divert. And apparently we have to get permits to clean out the canal. So that's where we are.
As we look at a paradigm shift, I might add, we're looking at innovation and action to start taking place in a more active role here. I was going to hand over to staff some ideas for the future, what we need to plan for in case there is some incidental, downflow coming through the fish ladder. There's information I was able to uncover in regards to aqua dam types of structures that you can temporarily put in place, such as in the fish ladder, so that we can do our work and get that cleaned out and possibly look at avoiding some of the onerous permitting that we've had to go through in recent months. These particular types of dams that I've been looking at, they're a fabric type of dam that you fill water into, and then you place them into the actual structure to prevent water downstream water from going into, for instance, the fish ladder. They create tight enclosures, and they allow staff or whoever to do some work. So between the engineering manager and the GM, I like to pass this on to them for research and review.
Okay. Good. Director Sano, did you have a comment that you wanted to add at this
Yes.
point?
Question, please. The diversion channels. In the last rain, I'm wondering how much water, if any, was diverted to Ojai?
Yes, we were able to divert some water, as much as we legally were able to, about 200 acre feet, was it? That we were.
The first storm was about a little over 300, but that's not just diversions. That's water that entered the lake from all sources. I'd say the diversion amount was about 140 for that storm. Second storm was much less. That was maybe about 150 from all sources in the neighborhood of 50 or so acre feet. Just wasn't a lot of runoff from that storm. So.
And the first amount of water has to be released through the fish ladder itself, the fish passage itself, for the preservation of the fish in the downstream watershed aquifer.
And that there's differences of opinion on
Yes, that's an understatement. But yes, it is. But we have a biological opinion we have to follow, and we are following it to the letter.
Then the diversion channels, if I might ask, how much do they block water flowing into?
I'm sorry. How much? What?
Oh, if the diversion channels are plugged up, is that blocking a lot of water that might come in because it gets stagnant in there?
Virtually all of it.
Well, let me answer that right now. The condition of the what we're talking about is the fish green bay has maybe about 12 to 18 inches of sediment, ash, and debris in it that has allowed, since we haven't been able to close it since water's been flowing all year. Normally water stops flowing and we're able to get in and do our work. Biological opinion did not handle a situation where we have flow all year long, so we could not close it off. That allowed things to take root and grow in there. The last two storms pushed a little bit of material into the fish ladder, but overall everything stayed in place and we were able to divert just fine.
Thank you.
So.
Okay. Yeah, Director Spanos, did you have a comment?
Yes. Good evening. I feel very privileged to be here tonight as a member of the Casitas Municipal Water District Board. I look forward to working with the directors and staff in the future for solving our problems. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my wife for putting up with me for the last 6 months. It was a great shoulder to cry on and a great place to go for some sane advice on how to handle the campaign. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my campaign committee and all those who worked so hard to get me elected. They put in a lot of hours to make this happen. And thanks to all of those that voted for me, had the confidence in me to vote for me for this position. Speaking of the vote, there were 4,908 votes cast from Division 4. That's around a 70% turnout, which is absolutely amazing. Mary Bergen, who's here tonight, there's Mary, received 2,215 of those votes. Those people in Division 4 that voted for her thought she should be sitting here tonight instead of me. I received only 445 votes more than Mary Bergen did. I've asked Mary if she would help me to stay in touch with her supporters so that I can make certain that their wishes and needs continue to be heard. In addition, I've asked Mary if she would assist me in a continuing dialogue with the agricultural community. Mary has graciously agreed to work with me in both of those areas. Thank you, Mary. Lastly, I'd like to read some words that Director Baggerly wrote about 2.5 years ago in his request to the general manager at that time, Steve Wickstrom. It was in a report that he wrote called New Water Reconnaissance Report. And this is what he said in part. This was 2.5 years ago. It's going to be of paramount importance for our apprehensive customers. Do we have any of those apprehensive customers? That we are seen as being as proactive as possible on their behalf in providing water security for the future. This statement is still insightful and valid today. I believe that Casitas is turning the corner in being responsive to customers' apprehensions. However, Casitas must also recognize that being proactive for a secure water future is going to require, among other things, innovative and intelligent cooperation with all neighboring water agencies, especially Ventura, to manage our water for the overall good of the entire watershed. I look forward to participating in these processes these next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Well said, Director
Spandrio.
Thank you. I just want to say that I wasn't fortunate to receive 2,200 votes, and I recognize that, certainly. I put my name on the ballot fully expecting to run and represent a campaign in the city of Ventura and representing the residents of Ventura and the first district. But I certainly recognize my responsibility to every one of those residents, along with the residents up here in the Ojai Valley. Collectively, I look forward to working with this board and staff and coming up with what I think is probably one of the paramount, addressing one of the most paramount issues I think we all face in a number of different arenas, and that is climate change. And I do recognize that while we make a lot of reference to the word drought, and gosh, I can't wait till the rains come and we get back to those days of lots of rain, I think we all recognize those days are gone. And it's very, very different in how we have to approach it. So I think our ability to work with Director Kaiser, as you just did, bringing some of the information that's out there that other water districts are working with, the aqua dams, things like that. The residents here and the folks interested should also forward information to us, because we got to do this collectively, and we need to look, if we're going to get and keep what I want to say is ongoing water security. I recognize the city of Ventura is working on a number of different options, and I think that's we as a board need to work on that with them, and obviously negotiate and come up with something that's that works for everybody. But I look forward to doing that, and I think we can. And in closing, I just want to say that I want to thank former Director Bergen, Mary, for all your years on here, but certainly to the seat I'm sitting in is Bill Hicks, 28 years of being involved, and doggone it if it wasn't the wettest years on record. But lucky Bill. But that being said, I work in the arena of resilience and adaptation to climate change, and I want to make sure that we all work collectively on that together. So I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you for your comments. Director Kaiser, do you have additional?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move to verbal reports on meetings attended. Are there any? Hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda, which is the minutes of November 28th board meeting. Your pleasure, please.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Mr. Chair, if I might, I recognize, having read the minutes, I could vote on the minutes, but in the spirit of full transparency, I'll abstain this time around.
You are seconding the minutes.
I can still second it, but not vote on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Pandrio?
Well, since I wasn't here then either, perhaps I should abstain.
Okay.
Mr. Brennan?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
So the question is,
That's-
do we have a quorum here?
We don't, so these minutes will come
It
back to the
passes,
next meeting.
it passes because you've got abstentions, but actually minutes are just what they are. They're a record of the meeting, and a person
It's an exception.
doesn't have to, you don't have to be at the meeting. If you've reviewed them and the other members that were there are satisfied with them. So, but I think they passed now.
Okay, thank you.
People that were here.
Then we will move to review of district accounts payable, reports for the period 11/21 and 12/05. Pleasure of the board.
I've had the chance to review them. I have no issues with any of those particular warrants. My motion is to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the bills as presented. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Spandrio?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes, thank you. We now move to item number 10, which is, this is the time and the place and the date set for public hearing to consider input regarding the proposed declaration of Stage 4 water supply conditions of Lake Casitas.
Mr. President, since the board is deciding on whether or not to approve this Stage 4 drought declaration, it seems appropriate to me that the board hears comments from the staff as well as public comments before presenting their own comments. Otherwise, it might be interpreted that the board has already formulated their opinions of this resolution prior to comments from the public. Are there?
Yes, that is the procedure. We will hear any names in public who have written in or submitted communications. We will have that list, and then the general manager's report will be giving. After that, the public hearing will be open, and we'll hear both from public and directors.
And then board director comments will be after that.
That's right.
Thank you.
Clerk, will you read, of the board, will you please read the names of the public who have submitted communications regarding the proposed declaration?
There have been none.
Thank you. May we have the general manager's report?
Okay. Well, I'm going to do a PowerPoint. It's not going to be too. Here we are. Too colorful, but I think it has a lot of important information in it. So, podium. Huh?
Yeah, I got him here. So.
Okay.
Tim.
So, so we're going to discuss Stage 4 declaration. So, number of things that I think should be considered. First, we'll look at the current demand management measures and what customer performance has looked like. Would it help to turn the lights down a little bit? Or we're okay. Okay. Then talk a little bit about what the Water Efficiency Allocation Program says about Stage 4. The acronym for that is WEEP. A little bit about customer feedback. We did hold a Ag Town Hall in October. We did include the comments from that meeting in the board agenda packet tonight. So the board members have seen that. Then I'll bring forward some policy alternatives that kind of revolve around two concepts, basically the means for compliance and timing of when should we do this? When should this Stage 4 be declared? And if appropriate, we'll talk a little bit about outreach. So how has the public done as far as the need to conserve? Well, right now, here are the demand management measures we have in place. Right now, it's a 10% reduction to your Stage 1 allocation. This concept's a little esoteric. It's a little, it's not as straightforward as it might seem, but I'll describe with a graph here pretty soon that should help a little bit with that. Right now, the over-allocation penalty is $5 a unit. There is no outside watering allowed from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Water waste restrictions, which some of these are part of state law, but also we mirror that with landscape runoff and use of hose nozzles and some other things. And then we've also limited the amount of new allocation available for customers. That means folks that are adding buildings or putting up new buildings or new projects and want a meter or a will serve letter. That limit right now is at 10 acre-feet per year. And then a little bit about customer performance. The period we're looking at will be just before the main part of the drought hit the state in 2013 and then going through this last fiscal year. And it's all related to what is in the WEEP known as the Table 5 reductions. And I'll show that table right here. The reductions that you're looking at is that row right there. And each stage across the top describes what level of reduction. Stage 1 is actually a voluntary measure. And Stage 2 is mandatory. And we've been in mandatory stage 2 beginning in 2014, and we've been in Stage 3 since July of 2016. So tonight we're looking at Stage 4, which would be a 40% demand reduction response. So here's the graph. So you can see on the far left there, it says WEEP baseline. And what that is at the time our maximum, our 1990 kind of had been one of our biggest years. We had demands of almost 24,000 acre-feet. 1990. And there were concerns that the original estimation or calculation was done on the safe yield, which is essentially what the lake could provide in a year, was not correct. That number was 28,000 when the project was built. So the WEEP came along to look at, is that a correct number? And that number was reduced. And then also looked at managing demand based on that maximum, with the maximum being the Stage 1 allocation or Stage 1 voluntary demand being only 20% or 80% of that, or 20% reduction. So the stages, Stage 1 and 2, like we talked about, is a 20%, Stage 3 a 30, Stage 4 a 40, and Stage 5 is 50%. So beginning in 2014, you can see that even though it was voluntary, we were already at 20% reduction that year. Going into 2015, even though it was still just a voluntary 20%, demands dropped by 30%. Moving on to 2016, when Stage 3 declaration was declared, the area was already down to 40%, or essentially a Stage 4 demand scenario. And then in 2017 and 18, the area, as a group, the water demands have been really at Stage 5 level. That is truly phenomenal. And I credit that, at least somebody that's been here about 2 years now, to two things. I think folks are keenly aware of the lake. They drive by it, they like it when it's full, they don't like it when it's going down. So it's a good barometer for people to think about their water use. And secondly, I think there has been a good drought message that has gone out. And people have been paying attention to that drought message that the district has been putting out. And that's really just pretty phenomenal. I think there are many parts of the state where you couldn't get that kind of response without some really draconian penalties. And the penalties figure in here too, but you can see the behavior is far beyond what actually was required. We're at Stage 5 when actually only requiring Stage 3. Another thing I thought would be important is to look, how much more than what people are allocated are actually being penalized. How much are people using as a group? And this shows the various classifications over the last 2 years as far as, did a quick calculation, what they represent, these penalties that we've collected in acre feet. And you can see, there has been, especially in the agricultural area, a big drop when that $5 a unit penalty came in. There was a big drop there. Residential actually went up a little bit, and I attribute that to we took on the Ojai water system in 2017, June 2017. So that actually has gone up just slightly. But over on the far right there, over-allocation penalty amounts equate to almost 500 acre feet in 2016 and dropped to below 300 acre feet. So again, this reflects folks understanding the drought message. And agriculture always struggles to do conservation because water is a big part of their costs. They're already trying to manage demands. And so they always have much more trouble cutting back. Usually when they're cutting back, that means crops are going without water, or they're taking crops out of production. Okay, so a little bit about WEEP and Stage 4. The general decision criteria that's listed in there is a lake level between 30 and 25%, which right now with the total lake volume at about 238,000 acre feet when it's full, that represents around 71,000 to around 60,000 acre feet. I took that number this morning, and we're right at about 72,667 acre feet in the lake right now. So we're not quite to 30%, but we're pretty close. And then looking at what the board can do as far as the WEEP is concerned, and the board can look at a number of factors. Lake level is one, but also how well is the area doing in conservation? If a Stage 3 declaration wasn't enough to get conservation, they could go to a Stage 5 if they wanted to. Overall, getting a good demand response is part of what the WEEP is all about. Looking at weather, condition of the watershed, and any other regulatory issues, there could be a number of factors that they could look at. And it gives the board a lot of discretion to make the decisions on what stage it should be in and what demand management factors should be included. Okay, so as far as the conservation measures that are in the WEEP and Stage 4, it's a 20% reduction of Stage 1 allocation, additional 10% over what Stage 3 is. Would be conservation penalties could be considered. Outside watering restrictions typically, and water waste and some sort of limit on new allocations also included. Looking at the National Weather Service Drought Outlook that was published mid-January, I think you can kind of see the little strip of tan. The weather folks, sometimes I wonder where they get some of the nomenclature, but it says drought remains but improves. So I'm not sure what that means, but we did get 2 storms. I feel good about that. I like that. It's early, but so that is kind of, I don't know, that's one barometer you could use and look at and say, what are the prospects for this next year? Drought remains is what sticks in my mind. Okay, so looking at customer feedback as well, we did hold a town hall in October, as I mentioned. The 2 main comments that came out of that, and there were a lot of comments, but 2 main comments I think that were relevant, is there was the majority of the people there wanted to wait to implement stage 4 reductions. And I understand that. Usually that's going to mean folks are either going to pay more penalties or they're going to take crops out of production. And I certainly understand that. Not everybody in the room said they wanted to wait. There were some that said, let's have the bad news up front. We want to know now. But the majority of folks there were asking to wait. And they also want to know, so you're going to be collecting additional penalties. We're probably going to be paying them because you try to get through this. What criteria will allow us to go back to stage 3? And I think that's an important part of the decision tonight, is to think about that due to the fact that it is going to be impacting those that what I would call demand hardened. They're going to find it difficult to reduce any more. Also looking at some of our wholesale customers, Ventura River Water District has their resolution 2018-315 that declared a stage 4 for them. And again, but keying on Lake Casitas is really kind of the reason that they have concerns. Miners Oaks also has drought contingency plan, keys on Lake Casitas as well. And finally, City of Ventura, they're in stage 3 right now, but if you look at their plan, water supply is the thing, and they note that Lake Casitas is an issue. So all of our customers are paying attention to the issue. There's no doubt about that. That lake level is something that they're certainly concerned with and looking to their customers to conserve. Okay, so moving on to policy alternatives. Let's talk about means to attain compliance. These are staff recommendations. These would be our recommendations for all the alternatives that we're talking about tonight. And we'll talk secondly about timing. And those have different criteria. But again, implement the additional 10% reduction in stage 1 allocation. Go ahead and maintain the conservation penalty at $5 a unit. Looks like it's working. Change the landscape irrigation restrictions to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. One of the issues where we have it from 10 to 6, staff doesn't actually get to go out and start patrolling and looking at irrigation until about 10 o'clock in the morning. This will allow them to go out right away, jump in their vehicles, go out and see if anybody's irrigating and be able to knock on some doors, get them to stop. The current water waste restrictions, I think, make sense. I've even chased a few of those down myself over the last few months. And it's usually fairly easy to see. People are watering and it's going down the curb line. You can usually follow right back to the source. And I think that works really well. And a moratorium on new allocations. But we do need a little time to work through who's currently in process. And what we wait for in order to assign a new allocation is zoning clearance for a project. So that's not a lot of time. It certainly wouldn't allow any new projects to come in. This would be new projects in regard to Casitas system itself. So the wholesalers decide, the retail customers that we wholesale to decide whether or not they're going to issue a will serve letter. These are will serve letters that we issue here. Percentage of water that Ventura takes from us, it varies, but it's lower than it's ever been. I'll say that. It's around 2,500 acre feet a year right now. And it's been over 10,000 in the past. So we signed a new contract with them last year, and I think that really is a good instrument to keep that number low. So, and then lastly, I'd recommend that a return to stage 3 when Lake Casitas reaches the 38% level. That's 19,000 acre feet. That we're right around 12,000 acre feet of demands, and then maybe another 4,500 acre feet of evaporation. So that would be just a bit over a 1-year supply. Okay, so a little bit about timing. First alternative to look at, we just go ahead and put this in immediately, implement it right now. Pros there are, maintains the conservation message momentum. There's no question the community will respond. In my mind, I think folks will continue to respond to that, especially residential customers who are billed their allocation penalties monthly. They will respond quickly. And if we have a dry conditions this year, that provides the best advantage. We're going to save the most water and not have if we continue to have a dry year. Of course, there are issues with doing that. We don't have a lot of time to notice the customers. We want to try to get those notices. We do send every customer account an allocation letter. And right now, there are roughly 6,000 accounts that we have. Our demand-hardened customers, what that means is folks that are really cutting back as far as they can without impacting their business are going to be impacted greatest by doing it right away. And we're just not sure where we are with storms this year. We were surprised by the last 2 storms that came in that actually provided some amount of water. A normal year without a burned watershed, we probably would have got really nothing, no diversions at all from those 2 storms. Another alternative, waiting until April 1st of 2019. And that essentially denotes waiting until the water, what we see what the weather looks like. But most of the water year will be exhausted by then. We've had March miracles. I don't know if we've had any April miracles. We certainly haven't had any May ones. But we'll have the weather picture down pretty good by then. Gives staff and our customers more time to prepare for stage 4. Would provide additional water supply conservation savings. There's no question folks will respond to that. And if it's wet, it is the best advantage. You don't jump into a stage 4 and suddenly realize we're back to stage 3. We do lose a little momentum and maybe a little bit of public confusion over what it is we really are doing. They see a 30% lake level and we're not in stage 4. That could cause some public confusion. And we will lose some water supply from conservation savings. I'm confident of that. It is our lowest flow time of the year. This is where our demands are absolute lowest. So not as much as if we carried this through the summertime. And then lastly, defer stage 4 declaration until the yearly assessment. That's kind of what's outlined in the WEEP. That's what is in there as far as what is to be done every year is a report from the general manager about water conditions is put forth in April or May, and determination for the next stage usually occurs on July 1. Of course, this would allow for the whole rain season to be gone. We'll know exactly how much we got in there. It does give our demand-hardened customers maximum amount of time. And we are going to get a lot of questions. Even if there isn't a declaration, there'll certainly be questions and give us time to work with customers, go out and do residential surveys for those that want them. We've got quite a backlog of that right now. And helping those that are looking to conserve that haven't been able to, give them opportunity to do that. And certainly, again, same kind of problems. As far as downsides of that is a loss of conservation message momentum and public confusion, and certainly loss of water conservation opportunity. Okay, so I'll just recap real quick here. Recommended means are essentially 10% reduction, change landscape irrigation restrictions from where they are now to 8 to 8 p.m., moratorium on new allocations with a 60-day grace period, automatic return to stage 3 when Lake Casitas reaches 38%, and no change to the overall allocation penalty or water waste restrictions. And then the 3 timing alternatives. Of that bunch, I really wouldn't recommend alternative 3. I think that's probably not appropriate right now. Alternative 2 certainly has some appeal, but again, the conservation message I think is important as well. So I think that's really a policy decision for the board to decide. So.
Thank you for the report. We'll declare that the public hearing is now open. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on the declaration of stage 4 water supply conditions? I have 4 responses here that want to speak to this issue. We'll take those comments, and then if someone has questions or comments, we'll take those before the board responds. First one I have is Glosia Valdado.
Gloria Valladolid. I live in Miners Oaks. And I wanted to think out loud so that you would know what I would like as a ratepayer. The idea of stage 4 is appealing to me. First of all, because we are already conserving at stage 5, so it seems that it would not be a hardship. On the other hand, the PowerPoint said that agriculture would like you to wait. And agriculture is really important because I understand that they served to keep Ojai from burning with their orchards. I would like to remind everyone that Connor Jones, one of our local experts on water, believes that conservation all by itself can provide us with enough water. And the moratorium on new allocation is very attractive.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Next, I have Bert Rapp.
Good evening. My name is Bert Rapp. I'm the general manager for the Ventura River Water District. I would like to voice my support for your alternative number 2. Our water district, through our memorandum of understanding with you, is committed to implementing whatever staged route that you declare. So if we go to stage 4 and require another 10% reduction, our water district follows suit. I'm concerned about a conservation roller coaster. Should we get up to 38% by April of next year, for some fortunate rains, we would go down to 40%, then back up to 30% within 3 months. And I don't want to confuse my customers with that. With our water district, our usage in January, February, and March is only 15% of our total annual usage. It's the coolest, wettest months of the year. There's not much water to conserve. So I think maybe the best message is to let your and our customers know that the objective is by April 1st, if the lake is not at 38%, expect to go into stage 4, then everyone can plan, because they can go on your website every day and they can see the percent capacity. If they're a business or an agriculture, they know that the odds are we're not going to make 38%. So the important thing is of people being informed would happen. But you can make the actual decision in April or March 13th, and be ready for implementing the conservation goals when we get into the water using months. So with regard to, also like to address the moratorium. My understanding is at most you'll probably use 5 of the 10 acre feet allocated this current year. I know that our water district has 1 new home every 2 or 3 years. It's just not the building mecca that other places have. The moratorium does not affect the city of Ventura, where the growth is occurring. It's not occurring in the Ojai Valley. I wanted to give you an idea of how small that allocation is. If 5 acre feet are utilized this year, new homes are required to do rainwater capture. Old homes don't have to do that. They're also required drought-tolerant landscaping, which lowers their irrigation needs. So they're actually out of the 5 acre feet, which is a normal year usage, they're really going to use about 2.5 acre feet. 2.5 acre feet is 2 hours of evaporation on Lake Casitas in a hot day of August. That is such a small quantity of water to disrupt people who are planning to build their home they've been trying to get to for years. The other thing to remember from my perspective is every property in the Ojai Valley has paid property tax for the last 60 years to build Lake Casitas, the pipes, the pumps, the treatment plant, the tanks. Even if they're not a customer, they pay that. The current plan, I understand, of this board is if we get supplemental water, like have to do a $100 million project to bring in state water, that's also going to go on the property tax. And even the property that is not a customer of Casitas will have to pay that property tax. So they pay for the facilities over years and years and years, but when you need the water, we're not going to tell them, we're going to tell them they can't have it. To me, it's like Casitas has paid the state water allocation for 30 years. And then when we want it, the state says, I know you've paid hundreds of millions of dollars, but you know, we're not going to let you have that water because we're in a drought. I think when you pay for something and you need it, then you should be allowed, like other people, to be able to use it, especially when it is such a minuscule quantity of water. It's hardly measurable. Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
Yes.
may I, Bert, do you mind if I ask you a quick question? Because I just wanted to clarify the information. Ventura River County Water District, they're at a stage 4 right now.
We did not declare a stage 4. We declared a state of emergency. So we would not declare stage 4 until the Casitas board does.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that.
There was one other clarification I wanted to. Under alternative 2, if in March stage 4 was declared, it is at 30%, not 38%. It would remain stage 4 until it reached 38%.
Correct.
Okay.
My thought was the guidance that you might give your customers was that if come March 15th, the lake was not going to be at 38% capacity, i.e. we don't get a year or year and a half worth of water in the lake this rainy season, you can expect to be in stage 4, and you would take the action in April or
That's one of the criteria that would be taken under consideration.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Next, I have Jim Finch. Please.
Jim Finch. I farm in the Ojai and Ventura area and use a lot of your water, and also paid a few penalties this last year, but not the prior year. I would like to say that I think you ought to just stick to it mathematically. When you drop the meeting after you drop below 30, that would be your trigger point. And I agree that there should be some alternate trigger point. I was thinking it was 35%, because I think we started off this year at about 35% give or take, and we're sitting here at 30.5 today. So I don't know that we need to go all the way to 38. I would advocate for 35 or something like that, just so you're not constantly fluctuating between the two. But I just set it mathematically and do it. It probably will work out to be about March or April if you're just going down when you'd cross that, because this is our low use period. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Oh, and I was one of those at the last meeting that said, bring it on sooner.
I see.
Thank you, Jim.
You're Thank you. Next I have is John Conroy.
My name is John Coudray. I'm a property owner in Ohio for
I'm sorry.
Coudray, yeah. A property owner here since 2000. I've been in the allocation process for almost a year and a half, 2 years. I wanted to just bring a few points to the board. The Thomas fire impacted the area in a significant way. It also had impacts on county government. So if you're in process and you're seeking top tradesmen, top agency relationships, and you're actively pursuing your allocation for your properties, a stage 4 impact in 60 days, I would hope the board has a bit of compassion and empathy for people that have been in process, that have been going through this and are trying to take their projects forward.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Next, I have Ron Calkins. Where are you, Ron? Oh, you're hiding behind the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have been a resident of the Oakview area and a property owner for over 40 years, and pleased to be here this evening. I think the presentation provided was very helpful. I think it's very impressive that collectively we have reduced demands by more than 50% or 50%. I mean, that's outstanding. And I think that's clear to me and should be clear to everybody that means people have gotten the word. And there's talk about how we need to keep the momentum going. Well, the momentum is there. We have arrived. I mean, we've 50%. We have exceeded stage 3. We've exceeded stage 4. Demands are at the annual lows right now. We've had a little bit of rain. We're going to get more rain. Nobody can predict how much. But the time to take stock of a water supply in a Mediterranean climate is after the wet cycle. And the wet cycle, we're on the verge of the wet cycle. I would urge you to adopt alternative number 2. I don't think we can let up our guard. I think we have to stay vigilant. But I don't think we have to do anything tonight. I think after the rainy season and we see where we are is the best time to do it. And I am convinced that we will all continue to conserve and that you don't have to worry about doing anything tonight. We have the message. We have received it, and we are being vigilant about protecting our water supply.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Calkins. Are there other comments? Yes. I knew that was.
I forgot the 38%. I guess I don't get it. We're at 30.5% now.
30.54.
Okay, so we're at 30.5%. We are in stage 3. So I just don't get why it would have to recover to 38% to go from stage 4 back to stage 3 if we're at stage 3 with 30.5%. So I don't get the 38% part of it.
Well, I'm sure part of that would be if we go to 29%, then we get a lot, and we're in stage 4, then we get a lot of rain. We're up to 30.5. Then we go back to stage 3, and then back to stage 4. There has to be probably a little more consistency than that.
And I think that's one additional argument why you wait till April when the rainy season's behind us and we have a better sense of where we are.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments? Did I see some hands up there? Yes. Come, we'd appreciate your name for the record, please.
Yeah, I'm Roland Missouri, and I'm an ag user. I didn't get a chance to get to the October meeting. And it's really just a question. My allocation now is a 10% reduction. I mean, my allocation with a 10% reduction, you want to go to 20% reduction, but it's an annual allocation, right?
That's
so how is that going to change me in midstream here?
That will be our finance department is going to have to work out a scheme as far as, if we do that midstream, how we're going to prorate that back and forth. But yeah, we'll have to work something out.
So I know
that is an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue for us.
It is an issue. Yeah, and
all of a sudden we've been doing this. Now you want me to change steps and go into a different kind of operation.
Yeah. The only thing I can say is, thankfully, most of our annual accounts are smaller in number, and so we can work through those. And even if I have to do them by hand,
I'll look forward.
We can work through that. So.
I could probably help out.
Okay.
During Thomas Fire, we turned off allocation penalties on our programming, our accounting system. So what I would do is I would program the accounting system depending on the months that we're in stage 3 and the months that we're in stage 4 to calculate your annual.
Sort of a prorated kind of a thing.
There you go.
Sounds awfully confusing. Again, I would suggest alternative 2 to see where we're at before we make those kind of decisions. Because again, our allocation starts July 1st. Is that right?
It goes to June.
So those kind of numbers.
June 30th. And that was one other comment.
This for 40 years, and
yeah.
So
Ag would like to
my life anymore.
one of the other comments.
Unfortunately, this does not lead itself to being simple. It is somewhat confusing, and it's not only that, but it's stressful. We understand that. But the water is here, and we'd like it to be here. But
right.
that's the way it is.
But I mean, for us, it's about planning. I mean, we've cut out acres and acres
I
and acres of
understand
trees
that.
to try to accommodate as much as we can and still stay in business. And so the planning that we do now affects how we're going to make our decisions in summer. So
Understand.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments? Not yes.
Just on the fact I'm a farmer under the USDA program, and the decision to make that I have to make in the spring, if we go with reservation go right now, activate now, make right now, it's going to cost me 30% of the value of the deposit that we broke on to buy the trees. I just have to walk away from that today and not walk away from it April 1st or March 15th. The other thing is, we're covering a lot of our orchard that repair was destroyed. And if we can put off the decision to have to either buy or not, just save me a little bit more money and time to make a decision further down the line. And it's going to affect me one way or the other. The more we recover without having to throw the trees away and throw the money away, it's good for us. Now, I think that you're going to have to do what you have to do. I agree with this gentleman here. The water's going to be here, it's not going to be here. It's how that we recover. And the way you think about it, right now, I do a lot of dealing with the USDA. You guys are simple compared to them. And I like the simplicity of what you're doing. Simple as that. I want to thank you for the effort that you put in.
I take it that you're advocating option 2? If we have to have an option, alternative 2, which was March decision.
As far as somebody, they put our loss, the insurance company put our loss 90% of our orchard. Now we're looking at recovering 40% all of it because of actions we've taken since this broke off. We're providing Budwood, the Brokaw, with 30% of the lost trees, the rootstock that they lost. They're taken from our orchard, from the root system that's alive, the tree's dead. But we can recover those trees the same way. They're taking 35,000, 40,000 Budwoods from us. They're going to provide us with the grafting necessary to recover 250 trees in the spring. That's trees we don't have to buy. That's water that we don't have to water for 5, 6 years to get back on footing. We only have to go 3 years after we do it. So the decision of the court, or pardon me, the decision of the board is paramount in some of the things that's happening that people are trying to recover. One of the things we had to do this year because of the position of our land, we have to make the decision to use some of the water to stabilize our soil with roots, so we wouldn't cause damage to other people, properties below us. Because with we got that spent by the fire, our root system. We were putting seed a week after the fire, and all the experts said we couldn't do it, but with the drought, we reseeded the whole place. So, the thing is, when we work together, just the way the growth time that we are working right now, we're going to make it work for everybody. And that's the thing. And I'm just trying to explain. Whatever decision you make today, tonight, I'm going to live with it one way or another. But I walked away from the deposit on 1,000 trees.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, if I might add, this is all good comment, and I would like to think it's getting on the record, but we're recording right now, right?
Yes,
The
we are.
program. So if they would speak into the mic, I thought this gentleman, what you had to say is outstanding and great knowledge, but I'm not sure it's on the public record because you're not at the mic.
That's
so. I know. That's why I'm going to say, if this gentleman's going to speak,
Yeah.
maybe you could come to the mic.
All I want to know is you're telling us what you guys want from us. What are you guys doing for us? How are you collecting every ounce of water that comes down? Don't explain that. I know that you got a defunct system for diverting the water. I know that you guys haven't worked on that. I know we're coming into the rainy season, and now you guys are trying to collect permits. Why wouldn't we have gotten permits long before it started raining? In my business, if I don't perform, I get fired. That's my question.
Well, for one thing, the permit wasn't necessary because the vegetation wasn't there. As soon as the vegetation arrived and we needed to clean it out after the fire, we submitted for the permits. And it's taken that long to get the permits, but that's where we are.
Why isn't it checked on a weekly basis?
No, let me answer that. It's ready to divert and has. It's ready to divert and already has. It's fully operable right now. 100% open, ready to go. We collected 500 acre feet from 2 very weak storms. Sure. You want to see video?
I was going to say,
Just for the
what I would offer is if you'd like to come in and you and I could talk and I can show you video. I could actually even take you out there. I'd extend that to anyone here. We've done public tours that show the condition of the facility. It's not optimal. I wish that vegetation wasn't there. Absolutely. We're going to get it out of there.
This isn't a debate. I love to hear from the public. Don't get me wrong, but it's helpful to be on the record. No, I hear you. Believe me, I hear you. But it's helpful to be on the record with comments as.
All I know is I get fined every month, but I don't hear anything of how you guys are collecting more water.
Again, I think you've got an offer from the interim GM to meet with you and discuss these issues. And
I'll give you my number, and you guys
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
My name is Stephanie Vang, and welcome, Brian, and welcome, Angelo.
Thank you.
I just want to say I'm in favor of implementing Stage 4 as soon as possible. To me, it's a matter of protecting the lake, protecting the water in the lake. And I think that you guys have been hoping for rain long enough. It might rain this winter. I hope it does. But what if it doesn't? By putting it off, we could be jeopardizing the lake even more. And that's basically my
Thank you for
opinion.
your comment.
We're already conserving, as you've mentioned, so move forward. Thank you.
Hearing any other comments, we'll declare that the public meeting is closed and we'll open for director comments. Any comments from the directors or questions for those speaking? Director Spano.
The lake volume that Mr. Flood mentioned, the current lake volume is roughly 1,300 to 1,400 acre feet above the actual stage 4 level, declaration level. The last time I charted the lake in early November, the lake was falling around 230 acre feet a week. So looking at that and the numbers, we probably have 5 to 6 weeks of water before we reach the actual stage 4 declaration level. It's been pointed out here during the hearing that we are at our lowest consumption levels during this period of time. Ag use, as Mr. Finch pointed out, is down during this period of time. So I think, and we have had two rainstorms now, so I think we're going to be dropping at 230 acre feet per week or less over this period of time. So I guess where I'm headed, and we know that people are conserving at the stage 4 level right now or better. I think if we do anything that we should wait for 5 or 6 weeks to see if we actually encounter a stage 4 level. 5 or 6 weeks will be in December up into the first board meeting in January, which is January 9th. And I think we can reevaluate the situation at that time. I don't think we should go to stage 4 right now. I don't think that's necessary, and I think it's going to cause a lot of heartache. I think you're going to put more people into a penalty situation. Those people that are near their allocation right now or over their allocation are going to continue in a penalty situation, and I don't think that's warranted at this time. So my opinion is that we should delay it to the January board meeting. And I guess if I had a second choice on what to do, it would be if we have to pick an alternative, and I don't believe we have to pick an alternative. We can tailor an alternative if we wish to tailor it. But I think waiting until April 1st, deciding tonight to wait to April 1st is not a good decision. I think that's too far away and too much of a crystal ball, especially since we get almost all of our rain in January, February, and March. So I propose to reevaluate it at the January 9th board meeting, or come up with something other than a review date somewhere after January 9th.
Okay, thank you. Director Brennan?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think we do have an opportunity to keep our finger on the pulse. I mean, I was originally thinking that we should go right away. We've seen rain in the past where it's rained in October and hasn't rained till early May. And but that being said, I think that we have the opportunity to keep our finger on the pulse, know what's going on. We're not quite into that 30% yet, but I guess my question to both, maybe to the attorney, and I like the idea of January. We made the motion in January. How long would it take? Is it 30 days? It doesn't start immediately, right? Do we have to second readings? I know what ordinances are, resolutions.
No.
Does it start the next day?
Not on this. Yeah.
So it would start the next day after we made that motion. Okay. Well, then I feel very comfortable going in the arena of taking the pulse in January. And if we get rains between now and then. And if we have to push it out another meeting or two, we can continue to take the pulse. But I think the conservation's continuing, and the fact that we're at our lowest drawdown time at this point, I think it helps us. I do recognize that I'm not sure we were going to get an awful lot of benefit from the conservation this time because we're really drawing so little. I recognize that whatever we use now, and if we don't get rain, that's water that's down the stream, so to speak. But I'd rather do that and revisit it in 4 to 5 weeks than make that decision now myself. And I'm not afraid. This isn't about kicking the can down the road. I think it's trying to work with some of our best customers, but also recognizing the fears of the gentleman here. How come you're not taking water in? Everybody's in the same boat. Residents feel the same thing. Certainly, as a water user, or large water user yourself, you're doing what can we do? I think as we get through all of this, we can work through other methods of rainwater capture and things like that, recharge, and we're doing some of that. But the lake, we need to, I think, take advantage of the opportunity we have in front of us now, and that is to keep our customers, especially the ag and that investments. What would the Ojai Valley be without ag? What would it's both bucolic, but it's also provides a lot of other uses. So I think we need to be really measured in how we do this, and I'm happy to go along with that. Director's comments.
Director Kaiser.
Thank you. What this board is saddled with is determining what's prudent and necessary, as there are no guarantees, there are no certainties right now, as has been expressed. And also looking at balancing the needs with the public, the ag community, et cetera. The conservation that we've been involved in for a great number of years now has shown to be very effective in a lot of ways. It's actually probably extended the useful acre feet of the lake considerably. The whole thing is with these uncertainties, we have to obviously look at it in a much sooner fashion than April. And I agree with my previous directors here as to what they said. There are other things that come into my mind as to, what is the most acre feet we've ever experienced in the way of a seasonal input from rainstorms, et cetera.
Well, I know that historically one of the biggest years was 1969, and 100,000 acre feet came in that year.
100,000 acre feet. We hope and pray that maybe, God forbid, without the damage, we get something similar to that.
Director Kaiser?
But, the other thing that, we have to look at, too, is we've had the Thomas Fire, too. And what has that done to the watershed? Because that was one of the factors you pointed out. That is something that has to be considered. With the idea, as what Director Brennan said, without kicking the can down the road, I think we have to be monitoring this as a board on a very active basis. In fact, I would want to be looking at this seriously on a bi-weekly basis to know that we need to make that decision in a timely way and not get involved in prolonging this any further than necessary, because if it is like what Director Brennan was saying about global warming, and it's a continuation of that, and what we have been experiencing based upon climate change, we can't take chances on how long that lake is going to necessarily last without input coming in. We got to do our diligence here in making sure that we can serve this potential exhaustible resource we have, and we have to also be in sync with the other water purveyors in the valley too, to make sure that we're all doing our part collectively in going to that stage 4 if need be. So, sorry, Director Spander, are you going to say something?
Yeah, you asked a question about how much water we can accumulate during a storm. During our 2017 rain year, we had a total inflow to the lake of around 20,000 acre feet. So I think that year we received 27 inches of rain in Ojai, and of course that translates to something more in the Matilahaw watershed. But nevertheless, the total inflow to the lake was around 20,000 acre feet during the 2017 rain year. Now, total lake gain, you have to subtract evaporation from that, but you get some idea with a 27-inch rain, how much water we can actually accumulate during that time. And of course, somebody is going to be asking how much water we diverted. And during that year, we diverted 6,000 acre-feet of water. So we had 20,000 acre-feet total inflow, and we diverted, of that, about 6,000 was from the diversion canal.
And by the inflow that Director Spandrell is talking about is we have 3 sources that come into the lake. 2 other than just the diversion canal. There's streams that feed into the lake themselves, Coyote and Santa Ana Creek.
That 6,000 acre feet was about on par with the normal amount of what we receive if we're diverting. About 30% of our water comes from diversion. So that is
well,
right on schedule.
I've looked, yeah, it was 30% for 2017, but I have calculated the long-term average of the diversion canal, and over the life of the lake, the diversion canal has contributed between 40 and 50% of the water. So recently that 30% number has been bantied about, but I really believe that long-term average for the diversion canal is greater than that.
Well, I guess if we were conserving water at the 30% level, or even halfway between the stage 3 and stage 4, I might feel differently, but I'm not sure what we're going to gain by going to stage 4. The conservation, if we're already at stage 5 or very close to stage 5, going to stage 4 isn't going to change our conservation level. It is probably going to penalize some of those that are not even making stage 3 yet. However, there's an awful lot of our customers that do not get any water out of the lake. It's all coming from the ground, and that's another factor that we're not considering here. So I guess whatever your pleasure is, we have a resolution before us. If it's not offered, it can be brought back next month. However you want to do it, to handle it. Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we have staff bring this back to us at our next meeting in January to revisit.
Be January 8th or 9th, I believe it is.
Yeah, our next meeting. And I would think that staff would certainly, as they have here, done a great job of keeping us on track with where we are on the lake in terms, and also keeping it and looking at our usage at the same time.
I would second that motion, and I also believe that would give time for the finance department to try to work out some possible ways to work with that community too.
Okay.
And if I might just speak to the motion, I think by again taking a look at it in January and staying on top of it, I might look at it a little bit differently just when I'm looking at it now. I just wanted to say I think we all experienced something here in the valley I don't think we've ever seen. I mean, at 8:30 9:30 in the evening, it was 102 degrees on the beach in Ventura. I mean, it's never been that hot. And I know that we've had those 117 and not just no wind or anything. So the recognition that evaporation on the lake and certainly in our waterways are going to be is going to be driven up as we head into the summer with higher temperatures. I think again will be one of the factors I will look at when we relook at this again in January.
I agree with you, Director Brenner. I think we have to look at this totally prospectively as to what might happen during the summer months too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment? We are doing this since we had a resolution. We're not taking the resolution. We're just making a motion.
To postpone it.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Spandriel?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Word?
Yes, thank you. We will now, thank you all folks for your comments. We will move on to the rest of our agenda. I'm going to take number 11 and 12 and 13, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. Maybe we'll take a 5-minute break right now.
Sounds good.
That would be best. Thank you, folks. What's that?
How you doing, Roland? Mike Flood. Nice to meet you. Oh, okay.
It's being recorded.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
website, can I?
We're pumping up
Yes.
there and then
Is it on the website?
down to you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Got to choose your elevation, right? That's important when it comes to water. You want to be down at the lowest point if you can. So.
Good. Great. I know
Okay.
it's busy, but it's well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free.
We don't bother you for them. We can just go online and get them. Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Brian.
Yeah. Always more. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Should we show a diversion video? I can.
Ron, how you doing? Good to see you. You look great.
You look good, man.
What are you up to?
Retired.
I know you're retired.
Played golf yesterday, and I don't know, just
taking it easy, huh?
every day's a good day.
That's good.
Oh, he is a big asshole. His name is Kieran Moss.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's a
He was here anyway?
Sure.
Good night.